Good evening, everyone. It's Cat Sticker here with Soul Shift Thursdays, and I'm coming to you live from home. I finally made it home from Oregon. Yep, I've been gone for about 10 days with Michael and the kids, and we flew into Eugene, Oregon, and then we drove over to the coast to Florence, and in Florence, we saw the sea lion caves. It was really amazing. Lots of sea lions there, just as promised. And we saw lighthouse and just a lot of really cool things. We went riding on the dunes. There's like the National Dunes Park or something. We rented dune buggies and we rented a dune buggy, and my son was on a kid's ATV, and that was pretty fun because none of us had done that before. It was a vacation of new adventures for all of us. Then we just continued down the coast and down in Bandon. My daughter was saying abandon. We didn't want to abandon Bandon because we rode horses on the beach there. Isn't that beautiful? It was just like a movie or a dream or something. I never imagined myself doing that. And the beach there that has all of the coast has rocky cliffs that are overlooking the beach, similar to California. And there are these huge standing stones, these big rocks that are submerged in the water, sticking out of the water. A lot of times you'll see birds nesting on there, or sea lions will get up on them depending on the shape. Some of these were like obelisks, or some of them were more rounded, some big, some small. And we found this place on the beach where they were actually up on the beach, where you could go up and like touch the big rocks and see the waves would come and splash on one side of them, and it was just a beautiful time. I try to share some of those videos from my personal Facebook profile to the group, the Soul Shifters Guild Facebook group, but I'm not sure if you can view them if you're not Facebook friends with me, so you'll have to let me know if they're not visible. I could probably make them. I probably should have made them public before I posted them, but I try to share some of those experiences. Then after that, we continued down into California. We saw some antelope, and then we went to the Jedediah Woods National Park. No, Jedediah Redwoods National Park, which was this huge redwood forest. And we really enjoyed that. It was raining, gently raining, and gave the forest this wet smell, not an unpleasant smell, a beautiful smell. And we just played in that forest all day. Then we headed up into Cave Junction and spent the night. We went to the Oregon Caves National Monument, which is basically a cave tour. And that was really cool. It was like an hour and a half cave tour, but we also went on some of the trails around that park. Then we headed on to Crater Lake. Now, Crater Lake is a national park, and it was formed by a volcano that had erupted and left the indentation from the volcano had filled up with this lava, and it hardened and it formed a basin, which filled up with water eventually, I guess from rain. It had to be a lot of rain to fill that puppy up. But anywho, it filled up with water, and now it's a big lake. But then there's an island in it, and the water is really beautiful. It's very blue. And there's an island in it, and it turns out that island has a little convex part on it. It's also a volcano. And then there's another little volcano underwater. So it's like volcanoes within a volcano. And it was beautiful. And then the whole mountain still had snow on it from winter. So it was not a warm trip. We had to bring our winter wear. It was pretty cold for summer. Um, and after that, we were staying at like this resort in quotes. It didn't have any Wi-Fi. It was very rustic. Um, and there was no mobile service, no cell service, so we didn't have phone or internet or anything for days, for about 4 days of our trip. And every once in a while we'd get like one bar, and I'd try to do a live. Like up on Crater Lake, there was one spot where I could do a live because I got a bar. And then when we went boating out on Diamond Lake, which was by the resort, and I got a bar there. So I was able to do a live there. Thanks for the welcome back. Hey, Dash. Yeah, we're glad to be back home and with all our animals who are glad to see us. But it was an amazing trip of exploration. And I didn't get a lot of time to, we were busy pretty much every minute and just filled up with all this exploration. And we didn't really have much of a chance, especially with the kids, to just, sit for a while and do a meditation or anything like that. I think if I went back, I would try to maybe do fewer activities and schedule some time to just be still. But with little kids, they need something every minute. They want to keep going, so it's hard to do it when you have the kids. Yeah, we try to share some of the photos and videos so far, but there's so much more we haven't even looked at yet from our trip, from the photos and everything. We just haven't had time yet. So tonight, I am going to talk with you about living with a courageous heart. And I believe before I did a show about anxiety, so that's kind of has a little bit of overlap with this one. I mean, a lot of overlap actually. But this is a little bit different because I've been kind of planning a book or maybe a video series on limitless life, living with a courageous heart. And so this is kind of touches on that outline, because what is holding you back from achieving your dreams and what you want to accomplish and what you want to do on a day-to-day basis? A lot of people face fears that hold them back, whether they're small fears or big fears. They allow that to dictate their next move, how they live their life, and just don't want to deal with overcoming an obstacle of fear because it's just easier not to, or it's too much. They don't want to do it. So this is just a show about how you can take a little bit of action to overcome some of those fears and just get a plan in place to change your life and find a way to do some of those things you want to do. Because many of our fears are blown out of proportion, I guess, or maybe preconceived notions that aren't even necessarily true. And you don't want that to hold you back. Maybe it's something from your past and you don't even realize that you wouldn't categorize it as a fear. It's just easier to avoid doing that activity. But you really, in the back of your mind, you want to do that activity, but you're like, nah, I'm just going to pass. I don't really want to do that. I just can't imagine myself doing that. And I'm the one who has lived the life of the cowardly lion. If you knew me years ago, I would have never been on a Facebook Live or doing many of the things that I do on a day-to-day basis. I was very scared of my own shadow. I would have never used my voice. That has been the hardest thing for me to get past, is using my voice. And I was just scared of everything, you guys. I'm just scared of everything. So I don't know what came over me, but I decided that I didn't want to live my life like that. I decided I wanted to live, that I was the only one who could decide to live my life. I felt like I was waiting for a long time, waiting on something to happen, waiting for the right moment, waiting for the right person to help me, waiting for someone else to initiate my life. And that never happened. Um, Most likely it'll never happen. So I eventually figured out that it had to be me to take action in my own life, to make the decisions, to take a chance. And I'm not encouraging people to take risks that risk your life, but a lot of our fears aren't life threatening. They just maybe feel like something you don't want to face, and holding you back from doing things that you always wanted to do. Now, if it's not something you want to do, then you wouldn't want to face that fear. But if you want to live your dream life and a life without limits, you have to face some fears. You have to overcome some obstacles. And it sounds really hard, but once you get going, once you take that first step, it's not as hard as it seems. And once you get some confidence by overcoming one little fear, then you get the confidence to keep going, and like, wow, nothing bad happened. So maybe I should take the next step. Like, just take the first step, right? But I think the first step is really that you need to recognize and acknowledge your fears. Not just, it'd be easier to just stay at home. I don't really like planes. People are like, I don't like this. What they really mean is I'm afraid to take that chance. For some people, it may be airplanes, or it may be difficult people or situations. Maybe it's like me, being seen and heard was a fear, or fear of judgment from other people. Certainly, if it's something that's really active, there might be a fear of injury or death. But for instance, like the airplane, a lot of people are scared to fly. It really keeps them in place, right? It keeps them from traveling. And really, when you look at it, cars are a lot less safe than airplanes. A lot more people die in car accidents every day. So, but just think, if you were scared of being on a plane and you decided to take that chance, and you could go somewhere really amazing that you always want to experience, like Oregon, right? Maybe it's fear of the unknown. You just don't know what'll happen if you take a chance, so you just don't do it. Or empathy overload. That affects a lot of people who are sensitive, and they just, maybe the activity has too many sensory things, or it's around too many people in a crowd or something like that, and you're worried about being overloaded with your feelings. Or maybe you're living in the past or in the future, and maybe you have fears of the psychic realm, and there's something spiritual you want to accomplish, but you're not sure if, maybe you'll encounter some bad energy, or a bad entity or something that's keeping you grounded. So we want to try to identify those fears. What exactly are you afraid of? And when you identify it, and be really specific about that, and write it out and say it, when you say it out loud, can you say it to another person? When you say it, does it make you feel like, that really doesn't make sense when I say it? I'm embarrassed to say it because it doesn't make sense. No one would be scared of this. Get a feeling for if this is a legitimate fear. Like, for instance, skydiving, there is like a lot of risk of bodily injury. So maybe that's a legitimate fear, but fear of getting up on stage isn't as much of a legitimate fear. So it just depends on what it is, really. You have to analyze it for yourself and determine what's your risk level, your risk tolerance. How much risk are you willing to take, right? And if this seems like a fear that seems legitimate, and then you worry about overcoming it, right? So, secondly, a lot of times you'll have a response of anxiety when you have to face something that gives you fear, that brings up a traumatic response. It could be, for instance, it brings up a fear of abandonment or a fear of injury from people you dealt with in the past, and you don't want to have to deal with those people again. Or maybe you'd have to go to, for instance, you'd have to go to court to resolve a matter in order to go move on with your life. And you've had such problems with the system, you've been so traumatized by the court system that you can't face that again. I mean, it just feels like the end for you. You need to figure out a way to diffuse that anxiety response to that. And that may take a lot of work, and it may take some time to get past it, but you can do it. You just have to figure out a plan forward. And once you start planning, once you start putting things on paper, making a plan, that empowers you. All right. And then you're going to want to adjust your risk tolerance level. Remember when I talked a little bit about risk tolerance a moment ago? You know, maybe you move the needle a little bit forward at a time. You don't have to jump all in. Maybe you don't go, diving off a cliff into a bottomless spring. Maybe you go to the community pool first, if you're scared of the water. You don't have to move the needle of risk all the way. Take some baby steps, get some confidence, and as you go, your risk tolerance level will increase. You'll be able to tolerate more and more risk. So let me see who is commenting, because I can see a lot of good comments. All right. Rebecca wants to skydive. Dash loves roller coaster and wants to skydive. Y'all have at it. I've never wanted to skydive, but Michael was afraid of the plane. Now he overcame that, and he's been flying all over the place. So we had 4 planes to get on for this trip, 2 going and 2 coming back. The kids also, when they first started flying, weren't so happy about flying. They overcame that. My father worked for the airlines, so I was always on planes from the time I was real little. But yeah, so Dash says a room full of people makes her clam up. I can see that. I mean, that's me too. I am extremely introverted, believe it or not, and I'm not really good in social situations with a big crowd of people. Even people I know, it just gives me a lot of anxiety. But I still go do those things, and then the more you're in practice doing it, the less of a bear it is. Sometimes once you go to something, it's not as bad as you thought it would be. Maybe you don't go to a huge party. You go to a small gathering of a few people, and then you work up to a bigger gathering. That's what I'm talking about. Like, adjust your risk tolerance gradually. All right. And then develop some resilience. And resilience takes time to get to a point where you're really resilient. If you've had a lot of trauma, if you've had a lot of hurts, if you have to overcome a lot of pain and nervousness and fear, it takes a while to build up resilience, but you can do it. So what do I mean by resilience? Resilience is where you can withstand tragedies, when you bounce back easy from failures, and failures actually build resilience. So that can be, for instance, getting laid off from a job, and you, it causes you to go be depressed, and you're anxious about looking for another job, and this is something that's affected your whole life. You don't know where the next meal's coming from. You got to provide for people. You don't know if you're going to be able to keep your house. This is like a huge moment, something like a layoff. People who are not resilient will let that crush them, crush their spirit. They may not find another job. People who are resilient bounce back from that. They're like, hey, you know what? I can't find a job in this industry. I'm going to redefine myself. I'm going to learn to do something else. I'm going to, they keep going. They have heart. And that's where we want to be able to bounce back from any situation. Tragedies happen. Say we lose a loved one who was very close to us. Some people let that destroy them. They not only go through a normal bout of grief, but become very depressed and feel like they can't live without that person. And, their life's never going to be the same. Of course, it's not going to be the same, but they're not going to be able to carry on in the same manner of joy. People who have built up resilience can bounce back. They do experience grief. They do just experience some depression, but then they bounce back from that. They find the joy in life. And so these are practices that don't necessarily occur naturally for people. Building resilience is really something that you can learn to do. You can purposefully become resilient. You can have self-talk that's building yourself up constantly, that's building up your courage, that's building up your stamina and strength to face difficult situations, to face difficult people. Y'all, I have faced some difficult people that destroy my life, people that want to hurt me, that have hurt me. And, at some points in my life, I let that destroy me. I got to a point where I was so depressed, I had to go into a little mental facility for rehabilitation. When I say rehabilitation, like a respite for depression. And, it took me, I don't know, over Hey guys, did it save my stream? It looks like I'm still broadcasting. I'm so sorry, the internet had a snafu and just like went off, disconnected the stream. However, StreamYard it saves your place so that it doesn't just end your Facebook stream. It'll just give it a little blank spot. So hopefully I'm back on. Sorry about that. Is the audio okay? Can you hear me? Looks like I'm on. So anyway, what I was saying is, it took a decision on my part to not let those tragedies, all of the things that I had to go through that were traumatic, and the people that I had to face, these monsters that I had to face, to get to the point where I could stand up maybe not, I'm still not a person who like stands up to people and gets in their face. I don't like, I'm not real aggressive or assertive, but I can be in a room with someone like that and I can deal with them in a calm manner and not necessarily fall apart. In the past, I couldn't. I would like faint, pass out, like have panic attacks, things like that. It takes a while to build up a resilience, and it has to be, you have to want it. You have to want to get to that point of resilience where you can bounce back from someone like that, and then you meet someone who is very similar to someone who hurt you in the past, and you get triggered and you have to still go through with dealing with that person. It's possible. It's possible to build up that type of resilience, and you really need to, in order to live the life you want to live, because otherwise there's so much crap that happens that gets you down, that where's it going to end? That's just life. That's just life. And if you can't deal with those things as they come, then you're always going to be, waiting for those things to pass by so you can come out into the daylight and live your life the way you want to. Those people, those mean people, they're living their lives. They're not losing any sleep about what they did to you. So, in those situations, someone else will take your place on stage. Someone else will do what, write the book you wanted to write. Someone else will do what you wanted to do, will jump out of that plane. And no one's going to miss you if you don't do it. It's up to you. No one's going to drag you into the plane to jump out. So, and I'm not. I'm not going to be in that plane. But I think that you can do whatever it is you want to do. I believe in you. And you have to believe in yourself, and you have to want it enough to build up that risk tolerance and build up your resilience over time. And it's a beautiful thing. And once you do one of these things you wanted to do that you were scared to do, and you're like, wow, I did that. And I survived, and it was great. And I was scared, but next time I'm not going to be that scared because I know what it's like now. So a lot of times it's kind of fear of the unknown. What if this happens? You got to try to clear out those what ifs and not worry about it. Just do it. Just jump in and do it. And that's why, kids are great, because some kids are braver than others, but kids will try new things a lot of times easier than adults will, right? Because they don't have all these preconceived notions, and they're always hanging over the rail and stuff. I'm like, no, stand 10 feet back from the rail. I don't want any, scared for them. And they're just like, stop being so protective. So don't be so protective over yourself. Let yourself live your life. Don't be the overprotective mother of yourself. Oh, Michael, overthinking. Yeah, well, I mean, that thinking, so this is the pillar of mind, right? This is all in our mind. This is what we believe is what's going to hold us back. So you change your thinking, change your beliefs, believe you can do it, believe nothing bad is going to happen. Or if it does, so what? You'll deal with that when that happens, right? And like I said, I'm not asking people to take risks with their safety. I'm just saying, consider what exactly are the risks, and are you willing to tolerate that risk to get what you want? How important is it to you? There's some risks I'm not willing to take. I have a risk tolerance. I'm not saying have zero fear and, but I'm doing a lot of things now with my life that I've always wanted to do that I was always too scared to do. And now I'm taking those steps forward to do it. And some of the things I didn't even know I was scared to do. I just thought, I'm just not that kind of person that can do that. I just can't, I can't do that. I'm not that type of person. When I wasn't that type of person because I wasn't trying to be that type of person. starting a business, opening a store and things like that. I never thought I could do that. And now I've done it. I was like, wow, I did that. I can do it. And guess what? Nothing bad happened. Right? And, I've talked before about making some calls. Sometimes I'm really fearful about talking on the phone, especially if I have to call a government agency. There's something about that triggers something in me from the past, from having to deal with government agencies that were not, don't treat you in a logical or nice manner, and creates a fear. But guess what? When I do it, when I say, okay, I'm going to just do it, and I make the call, guess what? Nothing bad happens. The person I talk to is nice. They help me. And I'm like, why did I wait 6 months to make this call? Why did I put my life on hold for 6 months? So that's, yeah, thinking about like, what if this happens or what if that happens? That's that living in the future thing. So there's living in the past, where you're worried about what happened in the past, and living in the future, worried about what's going to happen next, fear of the unknown. And if we can just focus on the present moment and take the next step, that is where we're going to have the most success. And just breathe. If you can't do anything else, just do some deep breathing. That will help to give you courage. I used to think of myself as like the cowardly lion on Wizard of Oz, because I'm a Leo and I really identify with lions. But I'm the cowardly lion. Where's all my courage? I'm supposed to be this brave soul. And it was really there all along. I just hadn't identified it. I hadn't taken responsibility for it. And that's the thing. I'm responsible for my choices, for my decisions, for my risk tolerance. I'm responsible for my fears and for my courage. And no one else can do that for me, and no one's going to save me, and I got to do it myself, right? So once you start taking that responsibility, identifying, what am I so scared of? Is it just the unknown? There's worse things than the unknown. And, a lot of these things you can back out if it gets too much for you. But just try to take the first step, take baby steps. And then before you know it, you'll be living that life you wanted. All right. So get away from the edge of the bottomless trail. Yep. So you guys, I'm going to end this broadcast. I really appreciate you tuning in. I hope you got something out of this. I'm so glad to be back with you and working on, gosh, I have so much to work on. I have to catch up at work. Tomorrow I have to go back to work, my muggle job, and I know I have tons of stuff waiting for me because I couldn't even check my email while I was on vacation. I didn't have internet or anything, and there was no time. So that's going to be a nightmare tomorrow. And see, that's another, I don't want to face that, but that I have to face. So I'm going to. I'm just going to do it. Not going to worry about it tonight. I'll wake up early and just jump right in. Sometimes if you don't worry about it, you don't think about it, you just be like, okay, tomorrow I know there's something that I have to be anxious about. I could be worrying about it tonight, all night. I could lose sleep over it. I could cry about it. But you know what? I'm not going to think about it tonight. I'll just wait until tomorrow. Just jump in. And then I'll be so busy that I won't even have time to be anxious about it. I'll be busy going through hundreds of emails, dealing with everybody's issues. So anyways, that's all I know about that. I am thinking about, like I said, doing a series on this, a more in-depth series on living a limitless life, and going more in depth into different topics, or writing a book about that. So if you think that's something that people would want, let me know. um, because that will help me make a decision. Because I've got a lot of ideas, you know, I'm trying to flesh out the ones to work on. Which one should I work on first? Um, and which ones people aren't really going to be interested in anyway, so why waste a lot of time doing it if no one is interested? But I think this is an important topic that everyone can relate to. Like everyone in the world could relate to this, right? So at some point, there's something that's held you back. There's very few people that are just full throttle all the time, not fearful about anything. There are some people like that, I guess. And, you know, I'd love to be one of those people. I'm working on it. I've come so far, y'all. If you knew the original me who who doesn't even exist anymore, that person uh, had this had this explorer and this teacher inside, and um, just couldn't come out, just too fearful to do anything, stayed locked down for so many years. And that's a shame, but it was a learning process, right? Everybody has their own pace they have to go at, and I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. So whenever you're ready, take the first step. Don't wait for someone else to prompt you to do it. It's up to you. Do it. All right. Good night, everybody.